Today's topic is part of a series on hip hop, but it's not the typical conversations that's common when we talk about hip hop or when we think about hip hop. A lot of the conversations, related to hip hop are about who's the best and gossipy stuff on hip hops and nostalgia, whether the old school was better or whether the South is whack or whether the Midwest ain't or is hip hop or what hip hop is and what it's not and all of that kind of stuff. So this is not what we're doing. So when I talk about hip hop and I talk about, it being a part of Black music and Black culture and Black traditions, what I'm really talking about is this very specific identification of what is known as a Black or the Black radical tradition. So what is the Black radical tradition and how does hip hop fit into that Black radical tradition? So I'll be talking about some of the ways in which hip hop is connected to the Black radical tradition. I'll define what the Black radical tradition is, and I'll show a distinct lineage that connects not just hip hop, but so much of Black music, or essentially all of Black music, situated in this Black radical tradition. And I think this is a very important conversation that has gotten lost, right? So when we talk about the knowledge aspects and the social, political, and the social cultural aspects of hip hop and what it did for community building and what it did for hope and future generations, it's important to lay this foundation that I'm laying and attaching this legacy to the Black radical tradition in music, in Black music. So for example, when you think about spirituals, like the so-called Negro spirituals, these were like codes or mechanisms or methods of escaping enslavement. So this is sort of the first father of all Black American music, the first of the Black radical tradition that's found in Black music.
There's an angel there. There's an angel there. Ooh, 'cause my God, He never leaves me alone. He never leaves me alone.
Then comes the blues, right? And the blues is about testimony and pain and about truth telling. This is what follows the spirituals or the Negro spirituals musically. It's the blues, right? It's the I form of storytelling, the naming the oppression directly, the direct identification of the kinds of oppression that Black people and Black communities are dealing with. And then jazz. After the blues comes jazz. And this is all about intellectual freedom and improvisation. This is about, we're taking the music sheet and we're ripping it up. And white folks couldn't stand jazz early on because they were like, what is this? What is being played? Now it's mainstream. Everybody loves jazz now, but we have to understand it as part of this Black radical tradition, building off the blues, building off the Negro spirituals. And then comes the soul music and the R&B music. So now we're talking about, the doo-wop, the Motown era. You know what I'm saying? The 1950s, 60s, people like Curtis Mayfield, Marvin Gaye. I like to know what's going on. Aretha Franklin, these folks. The soul and the R&B was really the soundtrack for the civil rights movement. It provided the soundtrack for the Black Power movement, right? It was like the Black Power movement and the civil rights movement was a movie, and the soul music was the soundtrack. What spins off of soul and R&B, and a lot of it is overlapped, is the funk era, right? So you have the funk era. Now, you're talking about the direct predecessor of hip hop. You're talking about James Brown on the one. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud, right? So this is funk. This is where the funk is coming from. This is where, George Clinton and this Afro, this futurism, these ideas of a future galaxy somewhere else. Like he's taking us away from all of the hardships that preceded us and having us to look towards another future, another possibility. But funk does not come, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of what? A long black radical tradition musically. But in between funk and hip hop, you have the spoken word movement, right? So you have people like the Last Poets and Gil Scott-Heron and H-Rap Brown, who just recently passed away, may he rest in peace, and various others who are, well-known, poets and the poetic, word style of play that was going on, that was, that would ultimately influence the kind of emceeing that would eventually take hold and birth this new genre of hip hop that would eventually explode and become this global phenomenon. There are a couple of really important aspects that I want to talk about the Black radical tradition and to tie them into, what hip hop did and what it does and what it, still has the potential to do. Black radical tradition is about memory, right? And retelling history that America wants to erase, right? So it's the remembering of history, people, and places that America wants to hide. It is confronting structural realities, right? It is imagining new worlds, new possibilities, a new future, and creating those new futures. It is building community. It's about community and building the collective community, building up the communities, reinventing the communities, critiquing not only ourselves as people as we build, but critiquing the structures that are designed to keep us, downtrodden and in a place that is unbecoming of us and our dignity. And hope. The Black radical tradition is fundamentally about hope for a new future, or faith in a new future, or, the hope for new possibilities moving ahead for us and our future generations. This is essentially what hip hop was doing and what it was about. I was thinking about this because I was having a conversation with some of my friends, and I'm listening to old music and whatever. And for some reason, this old Jungle Brothers song came to my head. Now, if people don't know who the Jungle Brothers are, so if you know De La Soul, if you know A Tribe Called Quest, and even later on groups of people who might know Common from Chicago, or Mos Def, or, if you know these people, and even Kendrick, I would say that Kendrick Lamar is part of the lineage of what was called the native tongue movement. But the Jungle Brothers is really they're really the grandfathers of the native tongue movement. And they're the least popular amongst them, but they're one of my favorites. So in 1988, they released an album called Straight Out the Jungle. And when this album came out, I was a freshman in high school. So now let's think about what 1988 means. So we're talking about the sort of peak of the crack era, right? The peak of the crack era, and just before the mass incarceration boom. So you're about 20 or so years post the civil rights movement. So we're the next generation, we're the youth of the civil rights movement. There's one particular song from this Straight Out of the Jungle album. It's called What's Going On. And the song uses the Marvin Gaye sample, what's going on? Yeah. Tell me what's going on. So they use that as part of the hook for the song. So let's look at some of the lyrics in this song, right? Now, history was not my favorite subject. I used to flip through the pages and get upset, seeing little of black and too much of the other. They try to brainwash us. Picture that, a jungle brother. Read this, read that, answer question 3. So he's talking about what's going on in school. So what he's saying is, now history was not my favorite subject. I used to flip through the pages and get upset, seeing little of black and too much of the other. They're trying to brainwash us. Picture that, a jungle brother. Seeing little information. He's talking about history, right? Seeing little information about black people. Seeing little of black and too much of the other. He's talking about white folks. He's talking about the Eurocentric versions of history. Read this, read that, answer question 3. But when I got to 3, it had nothing to do with me. Something was wrong and I knew it all along. Now tell me, please, what's going on? Cue in the Marvin Gaye. What's going on? Yeah. Now the next verse in the song, he says, now I've been told all the do's and do nots. Now I've been told all the do's and don'ts, do nots. My mother, hallelujah, she called the shots. So you see, my mother, hallelujah. We know where this come from. Where this come from? Hallelujah. This is from the Negro spirituals, right? From the spirituals, right? Like this, you see how this lineage comes into hip hop, right? You see the faith, you see the belief, you see the values of these kids revering their parents and their family and their values and the things that they were taught. He said, now I've been told all the do's and do nots. My mother, hallelujah. What does hallelujah mean? It means it's an expression that gives the highest glory and the highest praise to God, to the creator of the heavens and earth. My mother, hallelujah, she called the shots. My mother, she called the shots means she made the decisions. She told us right from wrong. She was the one who we listened to when it was time for us to make a decision about what was right and wrong. Like, she had the last word. The last word was with my mother, right? She said, don't play with guns and don't play with knives. And most of all, don't play with other people's wives. And when you're walking down the street, pay the pushers no mind. Talking about the drug dealers. Because remember, this is 1988. This is the height of the crack era. My mother, hallelujah, she called the shot. She said, don't play with guns, don't play with knives. And most of all, don't play with other people's wives. And when you're walking down the street, pay the pushers, the drug dealers, pay them no mind. Because all they want to do is put your mind on cloud 9. Keep your head up high, your feet on the ground. You don't have to be like everybody else to be down. Stay in school. Don't be no fool. Don't lose your temper and keep your cool. Follow your heart and not your friends, because some of your friends will lead you into dead ends. He's declaring the messages and the learnings that he got from his mom, right? And you can see the lineage of black music, all the black radical tradition, all through this song, right? So now the third verse, they say, okay. It's one of my favorite verses. He said, my father said to me the other day, son, may God bless your soul. He said, life is getting tougher and the world is cold. I said, daddy, 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 what do you mean? He said, you ain't got nothing unless you got some green. He said, he's talking about the importance of working hard for some money. He said, you ain't got nothing unless you got some green. I realized to myself things are going to be hard. So each and every day I pray to God. I say, now I lay me down to sleep. I give the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, take me to heaven because I need a break. But if you let me live to another morn, I'd like to know. Q in the Marvin Gaye. This is a masterclass in the hip hop era of the musical, the black radical tradition in music. It's a masterclass where the brothers are talking about the lessons that they learned from their father, right? The lessons that they learned from their mother, and the lessons that they learned in school, or the miseducation that was given to them in school. Because remember, he was talking about, I used to flip through the pages of history in school, and I would read little about us and too much about them. They try to brainwash us. See the rejection of this. You see, the students are rejecting this because they know what's up. And these brothers at the time, the younger brothers in 1988, I don't know how old they are, but I'm gonna assume that they were like about 20. If that, maybe they were 18, 19. And this is the thing that they're focused on. Like they're looking at, three very essential aspects of their life: school and their parents. The lessons from their mother, the lessons from their father, the lessons from school was telling them that we need to reject this because this is disinformation. This is the miseducation of the Negro that Carter G. Woodson wrote about in 1933. And we're rejecting that. And so, this is just one of my efforts to have this conversation about hip hop, but not in the typical ways in which we think and talk about hip hop, but to think about it as a serious social commentary, right? As a serious element of resistance, because in its essence, this is what it is. So that's why periodically you have someone like Kendrick Lamar who shows up, or you have someone like Rhapsody who shows up, or you have someone like J. Cole who shows up, or you have a bunch of other different folks who are conscious minded, because this is fundamentally what it was, even though it's not, has been hijacked and has been derailed in a lot of ways, but still there are these elements that resemble the past that slip through the cracks, and people flock to it when they see it. That's it for now, y'all. Peace.
Word up, quick to set it, don't wet it. Real niggas lick shots, peace, Connecticut.
Yo, what up, yo? Time is running out, it's for real though. Let's connect, politics, ditto.